If talking about money makes you uncomfortable, then I've got a warm seat right beside me for you to come and join me for this next interview. Talking about money when I was growing up was considered socially taboo and probably a little bit rude. The lesson was don't talk about it. The result has been many painful and pointed lessons about finances. Joining me today is Dilys D'Cruz, VP of Wealth Management at Meridian Credit Union, who wants to help us break the money silence. Welcome back, Dilys.
Thanks so much, Candace. Great intro, by the way.
So, well, money silence, it's painful because you feel like you can't talk about it. Which creates problems when you're trying to figure your way through various scenarios with your money. So tell me about, you have an upcoming webinar on this, correct?
Yeah, well, we actually had a webinar a month ago, and the whole breaking money silence is actually coined that phrase from Kathleen Burns Kingsbury. And so we had her out, and she is a wealth psychologist. So she blends wealth with psychology, her background in psychology. And so she really wants to start the breaking money silence revolution. And so we do have that. We're going to share that link on your website. We ran the webinar. It's open to anybody. You just have to go on our website and you'll hear really, really great discussion on things you can do. But really this stemmed from, and your intro was great, is that what is money silence? Money silence is the, that fear, that being uncomfortable about talking about money. And, it really impacts relationships. We know that money is a big reason why divorce happens. And also, just within families, if we're not talking about money with our kids, how are they learning? Right. And you talked about it, and I was going to ask you this question and put you on the spot, but you kind of talked about it. It's like, did your parents talk to you about money? Did they tell you how much they made? I'm very open with my kids, but that was not the environment I grew up with. What was your environment like?
Well, I'm not looking to shame my parents in any way because this was 100% the generational thing. But when I asked about money, it was very much none of your business.
Right.
You don't get to know these things.
Yeah.
And so I am trying to change that narrative with my daughters so that the conversation is much more open. But it was interesting. I was reading about this when it comes to marriages, and there's I think 40% or something like that of marriages, they don't know what the other spouse is making.
Right.
And that's struck me as a little bit funny, because if you don't know when you're married, you're definitely going to find out when you're getting divorced.
Right.
Because those things need to be disclosed.
Yeah.
So
Well,
crazy.
that is so true. I mean, I've talked about this, and I have friends who don't know how much their spouse makes. They don't know what their spouse makes, and they got married about 4 years ago. And then the flip side, when we talked about this on the COVID divorce, is that quite often, if you are going through a divorce, the first thing you need to do is go in with financials. And quite often, women are not aware of not only that whole income side, what is your spouse making, but just the whole financial and the cash flow, in general. So this is really critical that we start talking about money. And I think it's really helpful. And Kathleen talks a lot about this. It's so great, but just having those open conversations. And I even think personally, the conversations I have with my children, and, you're going through divorce as well. And so it's good for children to know, your kids, regardless how old they are, kind of what your money situation is, good, bad, or, and you can work together as a unit. But if you're constantly keeping it from them, how are they going to learn?
It's funny you say that. I think this year, though, because of COVID and because that the impact of that is hitting a lot of people, that more open conversation, it seems like it may be a little bit easier to have that conversation this year, because we're all going through these pain points with money this year. I mean, if you're not taking a hit in your investments, you could be taking a hit with your employer, or if you're self-employed. So it's much more common that we're all sort of feeling this money struggle this year. So maybe that's a good opening for these conversations with our kids.
That's a really good point. That's a really good point, because it is a difficult time right now for many people, and you have to be open about it. So hopefully this is going to start the conversation. And I had some really interesting stats, which I'm going to share. So 51% of Canadians feel embarrassed about the lack of control of their finances. That's a big number. 40% of couples don't talk about their wealth or their finances. 27% of Canadian women don't discuss money at all. And it's only 18% of men. So women are a little bit more uncomfortable. Okay, but this is the stat I love. Well, it boggles my mind. I don't really love it. 61% of women would rather talk about their own death than money.
That statistic. So you sent this to me before our interview. Now I read that and I laughed, because that is similar to the statistic where, you know, people would rather be in the coffin than talking over it.
So I want to change that. Okay, 61% of us were talking about death. So we really need to start having the conversations. And so how do you do that? I think that, you know, Kathleen talks a lot about the mindset shift. So, you know, you need to start opening up and having these conversations with your spouse, with your children. But there's some questions you can ask yourself. And some of the things she suggests is, you know, it's, you know, answer these questions. You know, talking about money with your loved one is...
awkward, right? That would be my answer. That's the wrong answer, I know, but
right. Talking to my parents about money is
also awkward.
You can answer the questions, I'll ask it. Okay, the financial topic I find most difficult to discuss.
Investing, I guess.
Oh yeah, okay. I would say maybe debt. That might be a little difficult. The financial topic I find the easiest to discuss.
Oh, well, I guess that would be spending. Also, I feel like I have all the wrong answers.
You're probably representative. And then the biggest fear I have when it comes to money talk is...
Oh, wow. My biggest fear when it comes to money is that, well, and maybe not money talk, but money is that, you know, I'm going to end up, you know, on the streets someday in my old age. I mean, I'm running out of money.
Yeah.
In my old age. That's a real fear.
Yeah. Okay. So actually your answers were great, because I think this again is always about where do you get started, right? And so it's easy enough to say, well, start having conversations. But, you know, if you have the right advisor that is going to probe you and ask these questions. And I really loved your last answer, because there's so many people we worry about the future. And wouldn't it be great if you had somebody who had your back and said, you're okay. We're going to have a plan.
Yeah.
We're going through a hard time with COVID right now. And so we're going to adjust your plan, but you're going to be okay. And we're going to adjust it when we're past this difficult time. And so I really, again, say, get in front of an advisor, somebody who you're comfortable with. And, you know, at Meridian, we've had Kathleen out twice training our advisors. So they're trained to now start asking these questions so that you can not only have this discussion with your advisor, but you can have this discussion with your kids. In your case, you know, the children, your older kids, could be invited to the meeting with the advisor, and you could have a family discussion, and right, and or our advisors can help you know, parents, children start saving for the future. I know I put my son in front of my advisor, and he's just out of, well, he's not even at a university, he's doing his master's, so he's going to start saving now. So have an advisor that actually will ask these questions, will encourage you to think about it and talk about it, and just kind of give you that safe space to have the discussion, so that you can actually bring your family, kids, husband, spouse, partner, whatever, parents, you know, about the whole estate thing. There's so many, you know, and one of the stats here was 2/3 of affluent families have not talked to their children about their wealth, or never will. So what happens when they pass away? Then you have all this family, you know, turmoil and
you know,
fighting.
The idea of wealth and psychology mixing here is huge, because as you're saying these things, I can feel the stress and the anxiety in me, because nobody wants to talk about losing a loved one.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
there are some very real practical things that should be addressed before that happens, right?
Right. Right.
And when you were saying about, somebody saying I've got your back, that I could almost feel the tears welling up in the back of my eyes, because that's a very real emotional feeling that
Yes.
people have about their future and about that relationship with money. So
Yeah.
that connection is huge. So I really do love this. So
Yeah.
again, where can people find this webinar? Because I think it's going to be amazingly helpful for so many people.
So we're going to share the link with you, but I also encourage you go to Meridian cu.ca, go to our website. We have the webinar posted, and you can watch the full-on conversation with Kathleen and myself. And then if you want to meet with an advisor, we have a link to advisors, in the nearest location with you. The other thing is there are 2 free tip sheets. When you go on our website, there's actually a tip sheet to start having these discussions. And there's another one on family legacy and planning provided by Kathleen. So I encourage everybody to go on there and download those free tip sheets as well.
Okay, wonderful. Dilys, thank you so much for breaking the silence with me today.
Always great, Kat. Take care.